We have three items on the work session this evening, beginning with street conditions, a pavement management plan. Jim, I'll toss it on over to you.
Thank you, sir. At a recent city council meeting that we had when we were presenting the street preservation program to you all for this year, there were some questions that did come up from council members, various council members, asking about our pavement management plan and our rating system, and more specifically, why we have some streets that are rated poor that we're not addressing. So we thought we'd try to bring some clarity to exactly how we apply that, as well as come up with a plan to present to you all to get those streets that are currently rated poor out of that category, and ask for you all's direction, quite frankly, on how you want us to move forward with limited resources to apply to that particular plan. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Krass to kind of give an outline of our pavement management plan.
Thank you. In 2011, the council adopted a pavement management plan, or a pavement management system, and the recommendations and the report that was prepared were based on a network-wide survey of all the streets in the city. We actually did representative sampling of the various distresses on each street segment. That information is input into a pavement software program, and it assigns a rating to each of the street segments, and the ratings are a 0 to 100 scale, with 100 being best and 0 being the worst. The program we've been moving forward with since then is targeting roads that are rated what's the nomenclature is fair and above, but it's a street segment that has a distress rating of 55 or greater. The reason we've been doing that is we can spread our work out over the most number of streets with the maintenance activities we've selected, which include a 1.5-inch mill and overlay, microsurfacing, selected patching, and crack sealing. And on the second page of the staff memo is a pie chart that shows what our current, as of June, prior to this year's 2014 program, what the street network and what the distribution of the various ratings of the streets are. The program, when it looks at our overall street network, and if you just let it run its course, estimates, in order to maintain the network where it currently exists and with some minor improvements, it would take approximately $1.2 million annually to maintain the streets. What we developed is a program based on the $500,000 a year, is the program that we've come up with the mill and overlay, the microsurfacing, and patching and crack sealing. It does leave a category of streets that are maintained through a stopgap measure. We may do some selective patching on those roads. We may do some crack repair, some settlement repair, but we don't program them for a new surface or a mill and overlay and things like that. The reason is that our current funding level, we're able to maintain about an average of 30 road segments a year. If we start moving down the pavement categories into the more distressed pavements, the cost of rehabilitating those road segments goes up significantly, where we would, just on some rough work that we did through the computer models, we'd cut down to working from 30 road segments a year to 15 road segments a year, depending on what work needed to be done. Last year, in 2011, we identified a number of street segments that we've listed, and in 2013, in order to address those, we were able to have additional funding available of about $900,000. So we were able to work on quite a few of those streets. Then we following that, we've identified the streets that we're going to be working on this year, but also when we brought the resolution forward, there were a number of streets that we identified in our resolution that, and in the kind of the update for the plan, that were again set aside because they had slipped into that poor category, which we're going to need more robust work, whether it's a deeper overlay, a lot more patching, and it was really, the work there was beyond what we were targeting for the pavement management system. What we've identified, or what we're proposing for next year is, of that $903,000, we only spent about $559. So we've got, from that $903,000, there's about $343,000 left. And if we combine that, what we're recommending for 2015 is to deviate from the pavement management plan for 1 year, combine the $343,000 with the $500,000 that's currently programmed, and address the streets that you see. Forgive me, we forgot page numbers, but it's the table that starts with Brookwood and ends with Lucy Webb on Madison to J Highway. It's about the fourth page of the report. That would address again a lot of the poor or more streets that need a more robust maintenance program. Based on computer modeling and doing this work, at the top of page 5 we have a pie chart showing what the network would look like at the close of the 2015 construction. But what the challenge we have is, as we said earlier, in order to maintain the condition the road's in place, it takes about $1.2 million. So in any given year, roads are continuing to slide down the curve. And we estimate, again, based on the computer modeling, the reason I keep saying the computer modeling is we don't have a lot of history for the data. We've only been through this one cycle of surveying the streets, and then we're 2/3 of the way through an update. So the program has a pavement decay curve in it. It's a pretty standard curve, and as we get more data, we'll see how our streets are actually aging compared to what the computer model is. But it estimates a slip in the rating of about 4 to 5 points annually, which would slide about 5 to 8% of our streets from the fair category into the poor. To a little lesser extent, there would be a slide from good to satisfactory and satisfactory to fair. So it's always sliding down and aging a little bit. We've, as we said, the challenge is to how to best allocate the $500,000 that we've been allocated. We've developed 3 options. One option is to continue and just target those streets that are fair and above, and that would spread our dollars out the most, and that's really a kind of a recognized best practice for pavement management systems. That option does still leave a number of streets that are simply in a stopgap kind of we keep them drivable as best we can mode. Second option is referred to as the worst first practice, where we just focus all of the dollars on the lower and poorer quality roads. The challenge with that is you're doing less and less work. You have other streets that are continuing to decay. The third option is kind of a split between the two, and follows pretty close to what we've been doing in practice. For example, this year we've allocated some of the funds to reconstruct Southwind Drive. We're going to be doing some extensive patching on Lucy Webb Road between Madison and J. Typically that work is beyond the scope of the work that would be ideally done under the pavement management or pavement management program. So what we're recommending is to continue that, and we'll just allocate allocate as many dollars as we can to the pavement management system, the fair streets and above, and set aside, we've typically been doing about $100,000 to target the real trouble roads. And as we're going in through and moving into the budget season, we're looking for some direction from you how to prepare next year's program, but that would be our recommendation.
Questions? Councilmember Westcott?
Okay, in option one, if you just focused on the roads that were, you said fair and above, that's about 92% of the roads, is that correct? From if I'm looking at the current June 2014 conditions.
Yes.
So that leaves about 8% of the roads under fair. What does 8% look like? I mean, you know, we see a statistic, but how many roads do actually fall in that 8% that are below fair? And not to put you on the spot, you know.
With the end of this construction season and the particular pie chart that you're looking at, you can actually look at that sheet of paper. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you could actually look at our recommendation for 2015 and see those roads that are in that poor or very poor category, because our proposal for 2015 is, for 1 year, let's deviate and hit the poor roads.
If I could follow up, how much do we have left in our undesignated fund balance?
For which fund, sir?
I guess it's the general fund.
General fund would have, we're projecting at the end of this year approximately $800,000. You may remember we set aside the $100,000 for, with a budget amendment just about a month ago.
If we actually took all of our roads up to a level of good, to where, and we just improved everything to the good mark, if we only lose 5% per year, would the money that we allocate each year, would that keep them at a level if we could get all the roads up to that standard point?
Not at the current allocation. In order to do that, we need about $1.2 million a year.
So that's even taking them to a, you know, starting at a perfect condition.
Right.
We still need 1.2 to maintain that level.
Okay.
Other questions of staff? Councilmember Hubach?
When I compared the June 2014 with what they consider for 2015, satisfactory roads were only 54%. Then they would go up to 56% in the following year. At that rate, we would always be behind. We would never ever catch up then if it's only going to be like 2% at a time. And I'm living on one of those roads that you all call poor. And to me, it is in better shape than some of these other roads that I've seen. And so I am wondering how I can justify fixing Hubach from Prairie Lane to J Highway when Lucy Webb from Madison Street to J Highway is in worse condition.
We are planning to do some extensive patching on Lucy Webb Road this year between Madison and J. And then if council, I don't know if directs is not the right word, but we would then bring forward in 2015 our proposal, which would then include a mill and overlay of Lucy Webb Road from Madison to J. It's kind of a two-phase approach. We'll get the road patched and fairly stabilized this year. I suspect there'll be some additional patching to be done next year, and then we would overlay the road.
Mr. Mayor, if I can continue on with that. To me, the city council owes it to the people of Raymore to have good streets. We don't owe them some of these other things that we might think that are necessary, like, for instance, the community building. But we do owe them good streets. And I wonder why we don't spend more money bringing our streets up so that we don't have as many. There's 15 of them here that are listed as poor streets. And that bothers me. Either our standards are so high that most of the streets won't be satisfactory, or else we really do have some poor streets. And if we really have poor streets, then I think we should make sure that that's our number one goal from spending our money, is to get our streets up. Because the people won't come in to shop if our streets are bad. We can't bring new businesses in if our streets are bad. The whole thing just seems like it turns around to what the streets are. And to me, streets should be our number one issue.
Councilmember Kellogg, and then Moorhead, and then Westcott.
Thank you. I think I'm a little bit out of turn because I just raised my hand, but
I didn't see when the hands went up, so
I
I'm
was
just
yielding
going
it out of respect.
right to
but-
left here.
Okay, okay, thank you. Question to staff, and I agree with Mrs. Hubach somewhat, for the most part, but I would like to hear staff's response, to that, because I think there's more to a story than just, what me as myself perceive as a poor street. A poor street on my motorcycle is completely different than a poor street on my car. But regardless, what I am curious about, out of the 15 streets that are identified here, there are categories of how staff categorizes different streets as far as collectors, main collectors, and stuff like that. And I cannot spit those out verbatim, but I'm kind of curious, out of these here, the ones that really stick out in my mind right now is Sunrise 58 to Dawn. That seems like it would be a fairly well-trafficked street, not just for the people that live on that street, but people in that area going through the area. If you can see where
I
I'm
can
at.
jump in for just a second, these 15 streets have already been addressed, right? And then the improvement is on the page that begins with Hubach Hill Road at the top.
That's correct.
And as an example, Broadmoor was reconstructed, and it was taken from a 28, which is pretty bad, to a 100, which is the best it can be.
That's correct.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, may I ask you which page you're on there?
Okay, the first page here is this one here that lists the 15 streets.
That's the
The
one that I was
next
reading.
page is this one here that says these 15 streets
Thank you, Mr.
were
Moorhead.
dealt with. Here's the work that was performed before and after.
Okay.
So, and I think the question,
What my question is I'm very concerned about all the streets, but when they're the streets that collect a lot of the, much of the traffic, not just from the residents that live on that street, but from the surrounding area, and then from the other areas, like when they're coming from down Lucy Webb, and then they cut through either Darrowby or whatever other side streets, Fox Ridge, all that. Those are streets that affect more people than just the ones that live there. They're affecting the whole city. So those there, in my mind, those kind of right up there is a little more priority as far as how many people and how many it's affected. And I'm asking does staff take that in consideration as far as their prioritization as far as those?
To date, the only streets we have separated out are the multi-lane roads. The rest of the network is treated as a local road. But you bring up a good point. If we proceed down the road where we are going to set aside a certain amount of money to address the worst streets, we could certainly do it traffic based. And as you said, either looking at whether they're a collector or a residential collector, and focus that being the first choice for those additional dollars would be the higher traveled roads.
Councilmember Moorhead?
I've got kind of a question, and I just need help understanding this. It's my understanding, and I think we all are kind of salivating over the idea that a road that we've deemed a problem could potentially get fixed here. But for me, what I'm seeing in this, and I guess I'm asking for the clarification, Public Works has the ever-present problem of there's always roads that are bad. This is worse, probably worse to deal with than the snow removal, because this is 365 days. And I know we all have our pet streets on here, but what I'm seeing is 3 options as far as allocation for 14 and 15 to give flexibility that Public Works is asking as far as how they address streets, and which I want to go ahead and I would move forward that we choose option 3 in the staff recommendation to give them the most flexibility, and then the subsequent recommendation that the 343,000 left over be implemented consistent with what we were told about on the page that starts with residential streets at the top, for that grand total of 843 in year 2015. So I guess I'm asking for clarification. Is that the way I'm interpreting this? And if so, my recommendation is to move that forward with option 3.
Okay. Yes, what we are asking for 2015, you've identified it correctly, is for 2015, we're going to set aside the pavement management program, and we're going to address these streets with the $500,000 for the pavement management and the $300,000 left over. Then, so that's 2015. So what we're looking for is, then the next direction is, what do we do in 2016? And that's where we are recommending, and I'm hearing some consensus that we proceed with option 3 with the addition of that we look at the higher volume road. Unless we've got something like Southwind or something else that's really bad, we would start with the higher volume roads, and that's where we would target the set aside dollars.
Sounds good to me.
And if I could dovetail off of that, the council has always been very good about recognizing, it seems, those points in time when we need a little extra help to supplement that $500,000. And if we have it in the general fund, you've always recognized that infrastructure needs take that kind of priority. With the flexibility that's afforded us with option 3 going forward in those years where we would see maybe that second part as far as bringing some poor streets back up to a 100%, we would certainly let you know in, I think we're hearing priority order by traffic streets.
That's my intent.
Let's see, it's Councilmember Westcote followed by Abdel Gawad.
Okay, as I'm looking at our program, the money that we allocated in 2013, we only ended up using 559,000 of it. So our pavement management system says we need 1.2 million. That's based on just a computer model. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so let me ask you this. If we increased our pavement management system from the 500,000 that we currently have, and we took 350,000, which is half of the $700,000 difference, because the 1.2 is based on a computer-generated model, and based on our actual experience, there was a almost $350,000 difference. If we increased our pavement management system by the 350, what would that buy us? So basically, that would put $850,000 into our pavement management system every year.
Well, it would certainly allow us to get to more streets. And again, because of we don't have a good history on how far that will sustain and what impact that would have in the network. We're right now just getting through. This summer is the first update. We update a third of the network every year, and so I think it'd be another. If we sustain that for a period of time, it'd be another 3 years before we would totally see the impact of what we've seen over the past 6 years with the maintenance program versus what's coming out of the algorithm and the computer model. Did I answer?
Yeah. If I can make I would actually support option 3 as well. But moving forward, I would actually propose that we actually take $350,000 out of the excess funds that we have in our general revenue account and actually move that into our pavement management moving forward. When we started off the year, we started off at almost $1 million surplus. We're at almost 800,000. We do that continuously. Every year we're always, we seems we have excess funds. That would be my recommendation moving forward.
Councilmember Abdel-Gawad, then Boehner, and then Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to kind of explain, I know when we were talking about this before, one of my biggest concerns is that it's hard to explain to people in the city why we're looking at putting money away for certain projects or things like that when we have a list of streets that say they're poor, you know. The big thing for me is we have our $500,000 set aside for streets. When it comes budget time, when we've got extra money, that's when I'd like to see the list of poor streets. So we can say, okay, we can set this money aside for this, or, because I think at the budget, part of the frustration for me anyway was at the budget meeting, we said, you know, do we have enough money for our streets? Well, we had enough money for the program, but not really enough money to fix all of our streets. And so I think I misunderstood that, yeah, we have enough money for our streets, so let's put this money somewhere else, as saying all of our streets are going to be taken care of. So that's kind of where I was as far as maybe misunderstanding the pavement management program. And just a couple of questions, a few questions, and I'll just kind of read them all and then maybe you can answer. I was just curious, you know, why did we have that $343,000 that we didn't spend that year? Was it because we did less work on the streets than we thought we needed to do? Was it because the program estimated high? Was it because the work came in costing less than, you know, what we had budgeted for it? I'm just curious why we had that difference. And, you know, going back to what Mr. Westcott said, if it's because the program estimated high, is that adding the extra money really going to solve our problem because we can assume the program's going to estimate high? Or was it something else that caused us to have that extra money?
I think it's a combination of B and C. We got better prices, and yes, the program did estimate a more robust program than what was really necessary. And what we found as we're moving forward, this was, you know, as we're going through the cycle, there really is a need to field verify, and that's really that's what our program is now. Is, you know, the program is only so, as I said, it's only so good as the algorithm. It's only so good as the historical data that's put into it. So yeah, we are refining and improving, and that's really it. No, we did not cut any work short. We did everything that was necessary on the street segments that were identified to be done, and we improved the streets as you saw. It's that was really it. The amount of work that the program estimated with the algorithm versus what we actually found in the field was different.
Okay, Councilmember Boehner, Kellogg, and then Westcott.
So Mr. Kress, looking at the software, we're just getting through the first cycle. Is there any indicator how long or how many additional cycles it will take to where we have very accurate data to work with?
Well, what I've seen so far, it's pretty accurate. I think I'd like to get through this last third update, and so in the fall, because what we've seen so far with what we've been updating and what we projected in the model, the street distribution is very close, within a couple of percentage points, and I think a lot of that is just the way that data is gathered. The data is only, you know, it's plus or minus a few points when you gather it in the field. So I think this one update will do a lot of good for us. I think what I was answering Mr. West Coast, if we're going to infuse more, then we need to get one more update. I think we'll have a very good picture this fall based on the current program that we've been doing.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not in support of moving $300,000 to this program right now at this point. Like staff says, I am more than willing to support and fund, you know, those projects when they come up, like we have historically in the past. I feel that their staff is doing their earnest to spend the money wisely, conservatively, and with good intent and forethought of how this program is continuing on forward. One thing that we forget is just, you know, 3-4 weeks ago, we also have a program called the CURB program, you know, and we've directed staff to
look at giving us figures and facts as what that program will look like in the future if we increase that one too. You know, we put 150,000, no, how much we put into the curbs a year? 300? And we instructed them to give us facts and figures as far as doubling that. So, you know, then there was the sidewalk program, which, you know, I mean, that's still out there, you know, and we're always talking about, you know, accelerating that because that was a 40-year program. Well, we've accelerated over the years here recently, you know, the last 5-6 years to make that, you know, a 15-year program instead of a 14. So we've got all these programs that we keep doing this to, you know, and we are in good shape financially. We're not strapped like Detroit. We have the ability to make the repairs that need to be made when they come up, you know, and the reason why we do that is because of our past practices and being that conservative, you know. Yes, I would love to have streets that are as smooth as glass, that, you know, we don't need street plows on, we use Zambinis on, you know, but we don't. But by the same token is that, you know, we don't have to go very far in this general area to see cities that have worse streets than what we do, and they're in worse financial condition than what we are. So, you know, I do support what Mr. Moorhead has brought up, you know, the option 3 and going along with that. And but I'm real leery about just throwing money at this when we've got a program that I think staff is very wise to have in the past few years, and it's working for us. And you know, this is something that's always going to be there. You know, it's always going to be there. But there's just those very few right here by the pie chart that are less than fair. Thanks.
Councilmember Westcoat, followed by Moorhead.
The reason why I suggest putting more money into this is it's simple math. If you look at the program that we had budgeted for 2013, we had increased it to 903,000, which was 400,000 above what we currently budget of 500,000. So we threw an extra 400,000 in. Now, granted, we have 343,000 left over, but we also have unsatisfactory streets. If we actually made this 350,000 an actual part of the budget for this amount, basically we would be advancing that program, just like we advanced the sidewalk program, just like we advanced the curb program. We've advanced each one of our programs. Well, if we actually did this instead of just a one-time deal that we did in 2013 and just made it a part of our program, it's always easier and more cost-effective to maintain a good or a satisfactory street than it is to have to rebuild one that is fair, very poor, or serious. You know, if you're maintaining a level here, it's easier to stay up here than it is to let them go all the way down and then try to rebuild, if I'm not mistaken. And the other thing that I would add is that, you know, anytime at budget time when we're looking at roads, you know, the impact of weather is what deteriorates a road faster than anything else. How much snow we have, how much ice we have, you know, the freezing and the thawing factor, how much rain. So even though, you know, when we're sitting looking at the roads at budget time, there's some that probably start off as satisfactory, but by the time that we get to this point in the year, now they're poor just because of the weather cycle that we've endured. So even when we're looking at it in August, we can't always see the full picture of what we're going to be looking at, you know, the following July.
Councilmember Moorhead.
In response to Councilmember Westcoat, I cannot resist but to throw out a sports reference, since I did get to see the United States score that goal in the last 7 minutes to beat Ghana. But I would say that I think there's some concern, and the reason why Councilmember Kellogg and I are kind of in tune here is a ball club that's winning and doing well, throwing more money to payroll doesn't necessarily bring in more wins. In this particular instance, our Public Works Department comes to us with very good information and data. They're constantly evaluating this. And, you know, judging by the pie chart of the conditions post the 2015 construction, they feel comfortable that they have good footing, they know what they're working on. Throwing extra money in there just for the sake of doing it, I'm fine if they come back to us over the budget sessions and say, we feel next year X number of dollars needs to be added, because they've had a chance to incorporate that into their their formulas and in their system. I think we don't tamper with the system just because we believe in them. I think we allow them to come before us and say what they need. And so that's the reason for, I support the most flexible option that they want. I support the additional 2015 repairs, but I'm not sure the extra money just for the sake of extra money is necessarily the solution. If they come before us and want it, we're going to give it to them. I think we wait until they feel comfortable.
To summarize the staff's position, we've got $343,000 left over, and I'm paraphrasing heavily here. What staff would like to do is take that along with the 500 that's normally allocated, go out and bring all the streets up to at least a fair condition, going off the program, off the reservation, so to speak, for 1 year. And then the subsequent years, we'd be back on program, or at least revisit the situation. At that point, I think it would be proper if we learn that another 350,000 will keep everything to the fair level, maybe that'd be a good idea. Councilmember Hubach and then Westcott.
My question is to the council. We insist upon annexing streets that are in the county that aren't Raymore streets, and we insist upon annexing them, and that, of course, they have to be maintained and taken care of. Why are we doing this when we have so few streets that are in good shape? This had nothing to do with staff doing it. This is what the council decided to do, that we wanted to annex all of these streets. And now we're having to pay for all of it, and we don't have the resources to keep all of our streets in good condition, because what I'm reading on this is we've got 8% of them are poor, and then about 20% of them are just fair. And you have to add in all of this, the ones that you've done on Kurzweil Road, and you've got it on Hubach, and then some of the other streets. Why are we doing it? Why are we supporting county roads at the expense of Raymore City streets?
Councilmember Westcott.
Thank you. I actually have to disagree with Councilmember Moorhead from the standpoint of the fact that we have to deviate from our standard plan tells us that, something is a little bit amiss. When we have to say, we're going to set aside our normal maintenance because we have to focus $800,000 on roads that are in such a condition that our normal plan can't get to it, that our plan needs to be a little bit more robust, and the only way that you can do that is, at this point, by adding money to it. If we were able to hit those streets and bring them back up as part of our scheduled maintenance, I would absolutely agree with it. But the fact that we actually have to set aside our program to just focus on those tells me that there's a miss and there's a disconnect. And I believe if if we put another 350,000 in to our current maintenance, would we be able to bring the roads up and still do some of the normal maintenance on our streets that would not allow these other ones to deteriorate any further? See, that's my concern, is that I realize that we can focus on the ones that are bad and bring those up to a level. But anytime we do that, then we're not focusing on something else, and then that slips back down. If we added 350,000 to the program, how much maintenance could we do in addition to what's being focused on with the option 3?
A couple of summary points that might address that. Again, as the beginning of the memo indicated, unless we're putting $1.2 million to it, no matter what, roads are going to slip into the poor category. That's a fact. The program, which admittedly, until we get through this first cycle, is a little bit aggressive in how it's rating and downgrading and the amount of money that would be needed, but we're not sure of those exact numbers now. But we did, to kind of go to your question, I'd asked Mike to look at some pie charts, and I asked him to run out to 2024 if we were putting $900,000 into the program using option 3, where we were trying to address some poor streets as they slipped, the major ones, thank you, and at the same time using a lot of the funds in the most cost-effective manner, going to that 55 level and above, where we were addressing fares, and we end up with In 2024, we would still have 4% at poor, 5% at very poor, and 5% at serious, unless we were putting $1.2 million into it.
Councilmember Stevens?
Come on, there we go. If we need $1.2 million, we're only putting $500,000 in. Doesn't that logically mean that we're in a downward spiral? It just sort of sounds like it.
Very, very similar to the CURB program. And what it means, I believe, is to my statement to the council about you've been very good about recognizing when those streets hit a point where we need to recommend to you at that point in time use of the general fund, possible future bond issue. Yeah, we had a lot of them slip into that category, and in 2007 we dedicated more than $12 million to getting the streets repaired. That is going to happen with limited resources.
Other comments from the council? Okay, why don't we go ahead and move forward with the plan as presented, and then at the budget discussions, if anybody wants to bump stuff up, we can there, so. All righty.
Very good, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
when we get to those budget discussions, if it would be possible that you could present us, I know we have 500,000 in it now, but if you would show us if we increased it by 350,000, what that would do for us, that way we can kind of have an idea of what extra we could do moving forward. I'd like to see that. That would be important to me.
All righty, moving along. We're on item number 2, stream setback ordinance discussion. This is probably yours, isn't it?
This one is
It's
going
gonna
to be
be,
Mr. Cataret
oh, okay,
heading
Mr.
to the
Cataret.
table. And I am actually just going to turn this one over to him, start to finish.
Okay.
Thank you. Back at your May 12th, 2014 meeting, council did postpone action on the 19th Amendment to the UDC regarding stream buffer protection. And you deferred action until your June 23rd meeting, which is next Monday. The principal reason was for the city to receive feedback regarding the proposal from the Department of Natural Resources. Since your May 12th meeting, staff has taken several actions. Several items have occurred that I just want to briefly go through to let you know what has been happening over the past month, and then where we would like to go for a next step and a recommendation to you this evening. What has occurred is that the ordinance that you did see at your May 12th meeting did receive review from the Environmental Protection Agency. We did review comments, or receive comments back from them, and we've gone through those comments. We also, as a staff, went in great detail over the testimony that was provided at your May 12th meeting. With specific focus, we were really interested in the comments that were made, the concerns that were raised about consistency of language. That seemed to be a recurring theme from a couple of speakers, and that they felt there was some inconsistency. So we spent a lot of time in looking at the details of those comments. We did take those comments that were received from the EPA, as well as the inconsistencies that we did find as well, and prepared a fourth draft of an ordinance. And it is this fourth draft that we have now forwarded on to the Missouri Department of Natural Resources, as you all requested. We also forwarded it on to EPA, as well as the Army Corps of Engineers. We wanted to get their feedback, any comments that they were willing to provide us on this draft. We have also, since your May 12th meeting, sat down with the chief of the regulatory branch of the Army Corps of Engineers. We specifically wanted to learn some details about the Corps jurisdiction, about how the Corps defines a stream. We were interested in their jurisdictional determination process of how a property owner finds out what streams on their property are under the jurisdiction of the Corps. We wanted to understand the limit of Corps responsibilities as well as the ability of the city to exceed, or if you would, trump the requirements of the Corps. We thought that was very important, and again, most of the focus being on the definition of a stream. That seemed to be kind of a center of the discussion at your May 12th meeting is how is a stream defined and what streams are we going to regulate. So we spent a lot of time with the Corps trying to get through that process. And then one final thing that has occurred is we have been working with the developers of the Good Ranch, which is one of the MOUs that are proposed to be eliminated as far as an automatic exemption. We've been working with them to try to come up with a development agreement similar to the one that Robert Jackson came up with for his estates. They have prepared a draft of an agreement. It has not been submitted to the city for review, but they are still internally reviewing it. They do have legal counsel helping them. They do have some professionals helping them in the draft of that document. And so we're hoping that that process moves along as well, because we know that was one of the comments made regarding the deferral to your June 23rd meeting, is having that process move forward. As far as next steps, where we believe from a staff standpoint we should go is looking to request a second deferral at your June 23rd meeting. And the purpose of this would be to allow a work session to be scheduled between the council and the interested parties, being the development community, the environmental community, and any other individuals that may have an interest in this particular process. We feel the format of a work session, and one that would hopefully be allowed to have comments made from the public, but a work session where everybody interested can sit around the table, and it allows for a little bit better communication rather than a formal public hearing where you get testimony. What we would propose is your Monday, July 21st meeting, and the reason for that date is with direction tonight, we can forward on this new draft that we've come up with, and it's not that greatly modified. I don't want to exaggerate the changes, but we do believe it provides clarification and a little bit clearer direction. But we would distribute that document this week to all the parties that have expressed interest. That provides them at least 30 days prior to the meeting to review it, to get any other individuals interested in the document, and to prepare for the work session. And we would, of course, duly advertise that and invite everybody here. And we just feel that would be the logical next step. And then, based upon the outcome of that particular work session, we would go back to a council meeting after that for formal consideration of first reading again for the document. So that's what we would propose to do at this time, and that concludes my comments.
And just to kind of wrap that up, that would also give the agencies time to respond to the document that we have sent them. And we would, of course, bring any of their comments to that particular meeting for everybody's review as well.
And I assume that the revised ordinance would be sent to the members of the P&Z for just to let them know that there have been changes, or?
Yeah, we can certainly do that as well, sir, yes.
Okay.
And we will, of course, post it on the website and make it
Right.
available.
Councilmember Moorhead, and then Kevin, did you have your hand up? And then Cal.
Mr. Mayor, this is actually for you and the council. We had a recent executive session, without going into the topic, where I felt there was a lot of discussion points and concerns that I wanted to address. I'd hope that we could schedule one just prior to our work session so we could address those issues first before we go into this. Doesn't have to be immediately. I just would recommend that it be before the 21st of July.
Kellogg, and then Councilmember, whatever your name is. Hey, I lasted a lot longer tonight than normal, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm assuming that we can expect to see this on next Monday night's agenda, and what will probably happen is that we will make a motion to postpone it, right? And to divert
defer it. And the reason why we are going to have that on the agenda is because we had previously said that it would be on that night's
Yeah,
agenda.
the council deferred to date certain, and the date
Okay.
certain was the 23rd.
Okay, I'm just, that's what I figured also, but I just, when we do this, you know, looking at it from the cynical part of me that, you know, before I was involved with all this and see all the workings behind the scenes and all the gear cogs turning, you know, this is good for the folks back here. This is good for the developers. This is good for us, good for everybody all the way around. But, you know, I don't want to, it's unfortunate that some people out there will probably think that we're just doing this to divert it and, you know, sweep it under the rug and lose interest in that. That is not the case. So anyway, I think this is good, but, you know, just like everybody that is interested in it, be able to be a part of it and have plenty of time with it. Thanks.
Councilmember Westcott?
Based on your comments, I assume that we have not heard back from the EPA or the Missouri Department of Natural Resources then.
We had some initial comments from the EPA at another meeting that we were having with them, but they have not had the opportunity yet to see the clean fourth draft. So we want to give them the opportunity to weigh in as well.
And does that, does the time frame that we are proposing, does that create any issues with other discussions with those agencies that we have had previously? Okay.
Other comments? All right, let's move forward. And that takes us to the third item. Maybe this one's yours, Jim. The scope of services and calendar review for request for qualification in a city manager recruitment firm.
Thank you, sir. The council has before it professional services scope of work. This would, if the council approves this tonight, it would be staff's intention, after incorporating any of your input into it, to incorporate the scope of services into our standard request for qualifications package and send that to all of the firms that we received. We received this particular scope of work from ICMA. We contacted them, and they also sent us a list of about 47 firms nationwide who do this type of recruitment. There are some of the firms who are local. It would probably be staff's recommendation, since we post it publicly anyway, it would be staff's recommendation that the firms that we actually direct send this to and don't just post it and send them an email if they're interested, that those be firms that are located in the Midwest. In the Midwest area, they tend to have an expertise, know the area, know what's available out there. We would normally give a request for qualifications like this approximately 3 to 4 weeks on the street, and we would ask all of the firms to send one original and 15 packages back. And part of tonight's discussion is staff would encourage the council to discuss what you would do once those packets were received back, because at that point, staff would of course be stepping back and it would be entirely the council's process. We would be advising you on the request for qualifications process. A reminder to the staff with the normal professional services RFQ, and this one would be no different. You see it in the directions to the firms here. They would send in a qualifications packet listing the qualifications of the firm, and in a separate sealed envelope, there would be one of those sent in, held by Ms. Quaddy, our purchasing specialist. And once the council had narrowed it down to who they wanted, you all would open that packet, and then you would enter into final negotiations on the scope of services, because this is just an outline of what you actually wanted them to do and what they would actually charge you. And you would be negotiating across the table with them for that.
And you said 15 packets?
Yeah, they would have to send in 15
Okay.
packages.
It
One
says
original,
10 here.
one original and, oh, I'm sorry, one original and 10.
Gotcha.
It should have been 15.
Oh, okay. So instead of
Thank you.
10, Scribner error, make it 15. questions for staff? I think everybody's, council member, Fresco?
I'm good, but again, what direction do you need from us? Because you wanted to know what the process is gonna look like once it
What
comes
we wanted
back.
to know is if you, thank you, sir. What we wanted to know is if you had any input into this scope of services, because it's you all's scope of services. And if you saw anything in here that you would want changed, we thought it was pretty complete coming from ICMA. It is their best practices, scope of services. They use it a lot. That we probably weren't seeking direction as much after that as just reminding the council that eventually you'll have to make a decision on when those packages come in. We do have a rating form that we could provide to the council that is basically a 100-point rating form. Maybe you could all look through the packets that are received, rate them, narrow it down to a short list. You may want to interview a short list, or one may show up as clearly dominant that all of the council members want, and then you would have to make a determination on how you wanted to enter into negotiations with them.
Well, just speaking for myself, I looked at the information, and it seemed very complete to me. And I'm seeing everybody nod in the affirmative, so let's go ahead and move forward with it. And then hopefully we'll get some really good applicants, like 3 or 4 maybe, or 30 or 40 is what I'm expecting. So, is that all you need from us then?
That's all we need,
Okay.
sir.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think all the council members got this. I'm sure Mr. Westcoat did and Ms. Abdelgawad did too, but I'll give you guys an update. Staff sent us in our packet the request for qualification that was received from one of our landscape architects that we've sent out for the roundabout feature and that. So, but we did get this. If any of you want to see this, I read through this as soon as I saw it. I'm like, all right, I got some good read here. So if anybody, you want to see this, I'll let you see this, Jeff. I welcome everybody to take a look at that. So anyway, and thank you for sending that. Very prompt. Thank you.
Not a problem. If the rest of the council would like to see a copy of that, Mr. Krass has one copy in his hand. Is the staff support to that? We could run a copy of that, spiral bound it, and get it out to y'all. Very good.
Sounds like people are wanting a copy.
We'll send it out, sir.
Councilmember Abdelgawad, did you want the floor?
I was just wondering, so what's the next step with that? I wondered, where are we going with the roundabout thing now? If we just got this one back, right?
And Ms. Quaddy has the pricing envelope for that, which I believe that they outlined in there that they've only price componented the beginning portion and gave their reasons why. I think I would probably recommend to the committee that you all meet, perhaps call them in, and just like any other RFQ, and especially when it's a sole source RFQ, you could enter into negotiations with them for how to proceed with the work and what they would actually charge you. And then for their component of the work, if you did not like that, then it's a failed negotiation. We would throw it out and seek you all's direction on how you wanted to proceed.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to suggest to the other committee members, what about 2 weeks from tonight, we got another work session. We generally met half hour, 45 minutes before the work session. Should we meet then?
3 weeks?
3 weeks? July 7th?
I would probably actually suggest maybe meeting sooner.
Sooner?
That way we can decide,
Why don't you
planning.
get together after the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Well,
Well,
go ahead and adjourn the work session then. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Appreciate it. And we got a council meeting coming up, in a week or so.